to our live stream, Let Us Reason, but also this is going to be our radio podcast, also called Let Us Reason. So I want to welcome those of you who are listening to this podcast. This is one of those special editions where I do both radio and live stream at the same time. We're going live, actually, hopefully, if technology permits, both on Facebook and on YouTube. And soon I'll be able to also see some of your comments and interact with you. So thank you so much for those of you who are joining us, whether from your YouTube channel, Cira International, whether you're joining us from Facebook, alfadi.cira, or if you're listening to my podcast, Let Us Reason. We want to thank you, of course, for making the time to be with us here. Today, I have a very special guest, Dr. Jay Smith, and in the last 2 days, we have been doing a wonderful and amazing series called, we haven't given it a specific title yet, but it has to do with the Quran and its qira'at or ahruf. I love the title or the nickname that Dr. Jay gave it, which is the Qira'at Conundrum, which indeed we exposed a lot of conundrum, we exposed a lot of controversies, and we gave you, our viewers, enough information to walk away from the series convinced that is this idea and the notion of one Quran is nothing but a figment of someone's imagination, because that does not fit the bill and it doesn't match any of the evidence that we have presented. With that in mind, Jay, I want to welcome you back, brother.
Thank you.
Why don't we kind of like give people just a quick overview of this entire series? I think we ended up doing about 16 videos.
We did 16 videos, and it's been a great 2 days where we've really, as you say, have passed it, unpacked it, looking at the crazy Qira'at conundrum. There's good alliteration right there. Two Q's and T's. And really, it's right here. This is it right here. We have it on the table. These are the 7 Qira'ats that I just purchased online in the last 2 weeks. You just purchased the same amount. You can do this. Any one of you can do this. We have always been told that this is the only Quran. This is it. This is the one Quran, this little blue guy. And we've been told that this guy is the same as that which is in heaven, is the same as that which was revealed to Muhammad in that 22-year period, is the same as that which was compiled in its complete form at the time of Uthman in 652, and is exactly the same, every word, every letter, in some cases even every dot. Right. Now, this is what we've been told. This is what you've been told, and we have always believed them because we didn't have any reason not to believe them. We thought that they were telling the truth. We thought that they were being honest. We thought that they were being transparent. And Muslims who are listening to us, we have always assumed you knew what you were talking about. Until, of course, we came across, when I say we, it really wasn't we, it was Hatun Tash, who came across these numerous Qurans in North Africa when she was visiting there by accident. A number of years ago, about 2013, 2014, brought them back to London. I looked at them and I said, I've heard about this, but I didn't know they existed. I had no idea that these existed in the 20th century, or in the 21st century in this case. So we looked at it and we went up online, and you can go up online, you can see the 30 that exist. These are the 30 that we've talked about. This is from Wikipedia. You can get this list off of Wikipedia. These include the Magic 7. These are the Divine 7, not just any 7.
The Divine 7 Qira'at.
Qira'at, and
Yes.
these are the first 7. And then you have another 3 that were added. So those are the best of the best, the creme de la creme of the 10 Qira'at that all the Muslims do know about. They do know about this. They've just not looked into them in very deeply.
Right, and the first 7 were officially canonized in the 10th century.
936.
Right, and the
by Ibn Mujahid.
last 3 by Al-Jazari in the
1429.
15th century.
15th century. So by the time of the 15th century, all 10 had been canonized. All 10 were considered to be divine. They were not divine by those who first chose them. Ibn Mujahid never considered them to be divine. He didn't even consider them to have come from Muhammad. But the next century, in the 11th century, they then focused on this because there were so many that were coming up. There was so much dispute about the many that were coming up that they decided to use Mujahid 7, create a divine status for them in that they have always existed, they all exist in heaven, and then gave them and attributed them back to Muhammad himself. Because we have the story in Al-Bukhari that there were 7 different readings. So those are the 7 readings that Muhammad received. The problem is, take a look at the names. Nafi, he is from Medina. When did he die? 785. Ibn Kathir is from Mecca. When did he die? 738.
So at least you would expect, at least using the logic, the fact that the Quran came from Mecca and then later from Medina, that at least these two names should be the common ones used
You
today.
would think, because that would be the Qurayshi. But they're not even the earliest. The earliest is Ibn Amir, this one right here.
From Damascus.
From Damascus.
What a coincidence.
Way up north. That has nothing to do with the Qurayshi dialect.
Right.
In fact, everyone after that, Ibn Amr from Basra, Asim, Hamza, and Al-Kasai from Kufa, that's Iraq. So of the 7, 5 of them are not from Mecca, are not from Medina, they are not Qurayshi. They are the corrupted scripts. These are the corrupted dialects. Now we've unpacked this. We're going to be putting them up on your site. We'll be putting them up on Fander Film as well. When you look at them, when you unpack them, you see that these are the wrong books. Take a look at this one here. I just want to show you Ibn Amr. We have him right here at the top, near the top.
And if you can give me a second to my beautiful team, I just want to find a way to be able to see the comments, folks, at some point. So please do what you can. I'm just giving you advance notice here.
Karat Ibn Amr. So this is the earliest. He's 736. And when you look at it and you open up, you'll notice that this cannot be from the 7th century because it has dots and has vowels. These are added possibly in the early 8th century. And the fact that they have dots and vowels means it's a much later script.
Right. Exactly. They do that because initially the Quran was written without dots, without diacritical marks, and that's why they come back and they add these things later.
So we just wanted to ask this simple question. Why in the world was this guy chosen then? Because notice those names. We went through those names. Let me just go through the 7 names real quickly. Nafi, Ibn Kathir, Ibn Amir, Asim, Hamza, and Kasai. Coming on down to the other 3 that were chosen by Al-Jazari, Abu Ja'far, Yaqub, and Khalaf. What name is missing? This name is missing. What's this guy's name? Who is this? And what is this from? Well, this is Hafs, is it not? Hafs is the wrong guy, the wrong place, the wrong language, the wrong dialect, and certainly in the wrong time. So he is not part of those 10. He is not part of the best of the best, the greatest of the greatest, as Yasir Qadhi keeps on telling us.
Amen.
That Shabir Ali keeps on talking about.
And now I just want to address, of course, those of you who just joined us. I'm seeing some of your comments. Thank you so much. Folks, I keep hearing, and reading comments all the time about, for the last 3 days, that no notifications. Folks, it takes a lot of effort to put everything that you're seeing here together. We have a lot of technology and a lot of updates. These are videos that will be available for you to watch, not just right now, but even after we are done. So let us just focus on the issue and ignore these technical side distractions that don't mean anything. And for the benefit of those of you who are watching this maybe for the first time, and those especially who will be listening to this on our radio, why is this issue of readings of the Quran is important? I tell you why. Because, and Jay will agree with me, Muslims, everywhere you're going to meet, they're going to tell you we have one book, one Quran that was revealed to the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad, from heaven back 1400 years ago, and it's still exactly the same Quran that we have today. No changes, not a letter, not a jot, not a tittle has been changed. This is why it becomes important. If you believe in something like that, then we have just shattered your Quran and destroyed it completely in 16 episodes. And I mean it when I say this, because now you're going to have to rethink your theology. You're building your faith on something that doesn't even stand the test. Ain't that true?
That's true, and I feel sorry for Muslims because Muslims really have no choice but to say that. Al-Fadi, they have to say it because the Quran says that. The Quran is very clear that it is eternal, chapter 85, verse 22. The Quran is very clear that it is unchangeable. Nobody, no one person can change the Quran. That's in chapter 10, verse 15. That's in chapter 18, verse 27. And most importantly, the reason that no one can change it is because it is guarded, chapter 15, verse 9. So those are endemic to the Quran. And so therefore, whenever the Quran was written, we're not going to give the date on right now. Whoever wrote the Quran, we're not going to say who that is right now. Wherever it was done, we're not going to say where that is. What we do know is that the Muslims, when they read those verses, they have to therefore make this claim. They are the ones that are hang-tied by the Quran itself. And because of the fact they are hang-tied by it, you hear this claim over and over and over again. So when Yasir Qadhi went to Yale University and suddenly he found out what we're telling him right now, what we have in these 16 episodes, that there are multiple Qurans, not one of these Qurans are the same. These are all Arabic Qurans. They do not correspond with each other. I just want to show you these two right here. That is the Hafs Quran. This is the Warsh Quran, the two most popular Qurans today. These two right here. We have now found 5,000 differences between just these two Qurans. 5,000 differences. And these are not insignificant differences.
Two, and we just mentioned there's 10 such Qur'an. Just between two of them, there's 5,000.
Just between these two. And
the most popular ones.
Actually, these two are not on that list that I gave you earlier. These two are not part of the 10. They are not part of the original 7. They're not part of the subsequent 3.
That's true. These are the transmitters.
These are nothing more than transmitters.
That's
and
right.
Yet they are the most popular ones today. This is the one that has now been chosen for the whole world. And what's fascinating to me, when you take a look at this one and look and see the people who were living at the time that he lived in 796 in the late 8th century. Muhammad died in 632. So we're talking about 144 years later. The people who lived at this time when he was living, they called him a liar. They called him a cheat. They said he made up his own narrations. They did not use him. Al-Bukhari says we do not use him. You can see that even those people who came after him in the 9th century, they would not use him. So why in the world are Muslims using him today?
Right.
Do you know the reason?
Why?
Well, for one very simple reason, they're using him today because the Ottomans used him. It had nothing to do with any textual reason. There's nothing about his script. In fact, there's nothing that has about his script that corresponds with earlier manuscripts. No one has looked and done any textual testing on it. No one's looked and done what we call textual criticism, that which has been done to the Bible from the very beginning in the 1800s, almost 200 years now. They have done textual analysis of this book, looking at the Greek, looking at the Hebrew, going back to the earlier manuscripts, going back to the Greek manuscripts for the New Testament, looking and like with like, always trying to find which were the manuscripts that corresponded with the earliest manuscripts. That has never been done with Hafs. That has never been done with Warsh. In fact, that has not been done with any of these. This guy was chosen, Warsh was chosen, had nothing to do with textual analysis. It had to do with geography. He was chosen because he was from Egypt. They needed somebody from Egypt, even though his master was from Medina. Nafi was from Medina. Why in the world? I mean, stop and think. How do you choose somebody because they come from a city?
And also, and by the way, I want to talk to the moderators. Thank you so much for being here. Jesus is not the Son of God. Block him immediately. Thank you so much. Here's what's going on. Even
that sounds rather odd.
Yeah.
Block Jesus, the Son of his.
Yeah, that's his name. These transmitters, for instance, you have Warsh from Nafi', right? And you have Hafs from Asim. At least if we take this argument at face value and say, oh, these guys transmitted what those original 7 canonical readers were reading, we still discovered 5,000 differences between them.
Exactly, and they don't even correspond with they don't even correspond with their own family. They don't correspond with their own stable. They don't even correspond with their own reader. So why in the world are they even put in those families? Why are they put from that reader if they don't even correspond with that reader? Textual criticism, by definition, suggests you look at the text. They didn't look once into the text. Their whole criteria for choosing the different narrators, the different transmitters, had to do with who was the most popular, who had the most strands, who had the most students that came after them. And we're not just talking about 1 or 2 or 3. As we saw, in almost every one of these families, there was anywhere from 50 to 60 to 70 transmitters. If you take them all 10 together, that could be as many as 700 different Qurans that we're referring to.
That's right. And someone, I think AKR, mentioned that Hatun discovered, thousands of these changes. He mentioned 63,000. I think the right number is
93,000
out of 23 of the
just
30.
23 that they've looked at. They've not had time, and I don't think there's any reason to. What's fascinating? Why is it that Hatun's team has to even do this? Where are the Muslims here? Why have the Muslims not done this? When Shabir Ali keeps on getting up there and says, we know that there is no difference, no doctrinal difference, we can't find any practice, any belief difference. Has he looked at those 93,000 differences?
I very much doubt it, or he knows, but he doesn't want to share it.
In the episodes that we just did this morning, we looked at 14 of them. These are 14 new ones that Shabir Ali hasn't even seen. We're going to show you in every case, there are differences. There are practice differences. There are theological differences. In some case, even doctrinal differences. So why is Shabbat Adi saying this does not change anything? As we're seeing Muslim who's mimicking him, this does not change anything, not one iota. It's only dots that are different. It's only pronunciations different. These are nothing more than dialectic differences. Folks, if these are only pronunciation differences and dialectic differences, then why is when you look the words, they're completely different words, they're completely different tenses, and they do change the practice. And that's why it's important that at least some of us are doing this kind of work, so that we're getting this out there, because this shuts down any notion that God is able to guard his revelation. He certainly didn't guard this one very well, nor that one, nor that one, nor that one, nor that one. He hasn't been able to guard any of these. The fact that we can get 7 of them right now, and Hutton has 37 of them, you're going to try to compete and try to see if you can catch up with her.
I thought he says in chapter 15, verse 9, that he will guard it.
He will guard it. That's what it says.
Yeah.
How can you guard it? And yet, by the time of the 8th, 9th, and 10th century, over 100 to 200 to 300 years after Muhammad, you now have 30, not just 30. Did I say 30? There's up to 700. So many of them that Ibn Mujahid had to then bring it down to 30.
And you guys need to watch the series that once it's published, and we'll make sure that we publish it as soon as possible, because I know everyone is waiting for that. You will know why Jay mentioned 700. He ain't kidding. You have to follow the math. It's very simple, by the way. And that's pretty much why this particular series is going to be adding more fuel to the fire. But at the same time, I'm praying that it will be the nail that sealed the coffin, so that our Muslim friends will come to Jesus. And by the way, I want to thank you, of course, again. This is live stream for Let Us Reason, but also it is my podcast, Let Us Reason. And I say this because in about 10 minutes from now, I will conclude the podcast side of things, but we'll stay on the air for a few more minutes in case you have any questions for us. So when you hear me talking about concluding the podcast, doesn't mean the live stream itself is over yet. Jay, what are some of the conclusions that we can drive out of the analysis that has been done?
Well, I think first and foremost, this idea that God guards it, this idea that that man cannot change it, this idea that it is eternal, we can shut that down pretty conclusively. Those 3 verses, 4 verses, chapter 85, verse 22, chapter 10, verse 15, chapter 18, verse 27, chapter 15, verse 9, throw them out. They do not make any sense anymore. You can no longer say that there is only one Quran. And this is why when Hutun stopped me back in 2014, I was saying to her at that time, Hutun, this is not that important. This is nothing more than diacritical differences. These are nothing more than 5 dots and 3 vowels that are put in different places on different words above and below the line, and it's just a matter of how you want to do it, many different variations. She says, Jay, you're speaking as an academic. You're not speaking as a Muslim. She used to be a Muslim. You used to be a Muslim. You knew exactly when you were growing up. You have been told since you are knee-high to a grasshopper. I know that's an idiomatic expression that not everybody will understand. No, it's from your very beginning time, when you first heard anything written or said about the Quran, you have heard that there's only one Quran. That's what you've been told. Right. And that Quran is exactly the same, that which was canonized by Uthman in 652, received by Muhammad from 610 to 632, exists in heaven for eternity. It's the uncreated Quran. That Quran is the same one that was given to Muhammad. It's the same one that we have in our hand today. You've always heard that there is no words that have changes. There is no letter that has changed. You have even talked about some of the dots have not changed, which not too many Muslims are saying anymore. What was fascinating, Dr. Yasir Qadhi said this. He has said it numerous times. Shabbat Ali has said that. And all the times that we've had debates together, I've always heard that recurring theme. I remember Adnan Rashid going up and saying, we have 100,000 of these manuscripts, and they're all the same, exactly the same. I have one in my own home. He said this in 2014.
Excellent. Jay, we have a challenge from a Muslim. His name is Osama Yamani. He says, show us these changes.
We're going to show them on. In fact, we're going to look at them. We're going to show them. So listen, Osama Yamani, we're going to actually do 2 different segments looking at 14 of them. If you want to look up and find other ones, go up on Dr. Bernie Power's website.
Exactly, but you know where he's coming from. He thinks like these changes are no changes at all. No differences. We demonstrated in at least, I think, about 17 or 20 examples from the Quran that there is theological differences between Hafs and Warsh, that there are linguistic differences. Define to us, by the way, what do you mean by change? And by the way, we have a poll for baptism when you're ready to accept Jesus. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's always get them and dunk them in.
Yeah.
That's what they do with their Qurans. We do it with people.
Yeah.
But we bring them back up again. And that's the beauty of it. We don't throw them in the water and leave them there. We actually bring them up so they're saved in Jesus Christ.
Amen.
But I think this is why for me it was really an eye opener when Huttu sat me down and said, Jay, we need to actually show these. So we took them down to Speaker's Corner in 2016, and we just held them up. Showed the whole world. There was Muhammad Hijab. He was right there in the audience. He was shocked. You could see he didn't know what to do, and his only recourse is to pull everybody out. And he said, come on, leave. You can see him up there in the video. Go up and look at the video. We put it up about a month ago. You can see he's
That's 2016.
That happened in 2016, 4 years ago. Almost to the day that happened, he then asked this question of Yasser Qadhi. I have a open, completely blank Musaf. What are you going to write in it? Which one of these are you going to write? Is it going to be the Hafs? Is it going to be the Warsh? Is it going to be the Kalun? Is it going to be the Nafi? Which one of these? Tell me. And what was Yasser Qadhi's response? We don't ask that question. We don't talk about
That's
this.
what he said.
Not in public. This is not something. You
But
must
take
do
his
it.
course, by the way.
Take his course, then you get a deep dive.
Yeah.
And when you go in the deep dive, then all the problems begin. Exactly, and that is the problem. He could not answer Muhammad Hijab until 25 minutes later when Muhammad Hijab came a second time, put his hand out and said, here is the Musaf. What are you going to write in this? And then what is his answer? They're all the Quran, every one of them. All these 93,000 differences is the Quran. He says, you mean a little bit of Hafs, a little bit of Wash, a little bit of Kalud, a little bit of Nafi, a little bit of Ibn Kathir. You just keep and mix them all up, and that's the Quran. Can you imagine? What an answer. What a response. Absolutely heinous when you realize that is no answer. And in 25 years, he's still not come up with an answer. If this caused him a crisis of knowledge back in Yale University in 1995, he had 25 years to come up with an answer. He could not answer that even in 25 minutes. Proving that even the best and the brightest the Muslims have today still don't know what to do with these Qira'at. Still don't know what to do with every one of these. And they're still selling them on the internet. You can buy them now. You just got, about 7 of them yesterday. The fact that they don't have an answer for this, the fact that we're going public with it, the fact that we're not going to let this go, the fact that we're going to continue to remind them that you do not have one Quran. You don't even have 7 Qurans. You don't even have 10 Qurans. You don't even have 30 Qurans. You could have as many as 700 different Qurans that have been in existence since the 8th century. Notice I'm not saying 7th century because they only begin to appear.
Follow the evidence, Jay.
You just follow
the evidence.
This is the first of all of them. This is the first.
I want to emphasize.
736.
This is the first Ibn Amir from Damascus. I'm just going to throw a couple of words at you. Qibla and Petra, near that area. Does that ring a bell?
Nabatean.
Go for it.
Nabatean. And this is something we've been trying to tell, and this is something we've been trying to remind people of. We're not just interested in the Quran, we're also interested in looking at Muhammad. We're going to ask, did Muhammad even exist in the 7th century? Did he ever live in a city called Mecca? Did he ever claim to be a Muslim? Was there such a religion called Islam in the 7th century prior to 692? And was there any book called the Quran prior to 692? Right. Everything that we are coming up with, all of these are 8th century. None of these are 7th century. Everything that we're looking at comes post 692. And that's why we're zeroing in on Abd al-Malik. This is the man that built the Dome of the Rock. This is the man that finally introduced the coins. This is the man that finally introduced the Shahada. This is the man that also introduced the name Islam. This is the man that introduced the name Muslim. He is the first one that actually eradicates all the images and puts only script. And yet he is there 44 years before these books even to start to exist.
Here is our Muslim friend again is saying, how do we know that Ibn Amir was before Abu Ja'far?
Well, what is the date for Abu Ja'far?
Yeah, you see, they don't do their homework.
Abu Ja'far is 748.
Right.
Ibn Amir is 736. Now just look at the math.
Exactly.
Which comes first, 736 or 748?
So, Osama, I have a word of advice for you. Your head is in the sand. Use a shovel. Get your head out. Use your brain. It works. Activate it. Go and do your research on yourself. We're not going to do it for you. We're not going to hold your hand, okay? Doesn't work like this over here. You've been doing it probably for all of your life. Wake up from your deep sleep, my friend.
But ask one other question that goes beyond that. Why is it, it should have been Abu Ja'far, and it should have been either Nafi, or it should have been Ibn Kathir who was chosen, because they are Hijazi, they would be Qurayshi.
That's right.
Why is it that Asim, the student of Asim who is Hafs, is the one that was chosen? And he is not from Medina. He is not from Mecca.
From Kufa.
He is from Kufa, which is the corrupted dialect, the corrupted script, the one that Uthman had burned. If Uthman burned them because they were corrupted, why in the world that the scholars in the last century, in 1924 and in 1936, and then in Saudi Arabia in 1985, why did they choose a script and a dialect that comes from hundreds of miles away and hundreds of years later and is a corrupted script that Uthman would not accept? And no one would accept it. And why in the world is that now, this book here, why is this now the canonical text? So I would like to Omar to come up with a response to that. And this is what Muslims are not answering. You've got the wrong book, you've got the wrong man, you've got the wrong script, you've got the wrong dialect, and you've got the wrong place. Come on home. Come on home to Jesus Christ, because we don't have any of that problem.
Amen.
With
And
our
here's
Bible.
another thing I want to mention. You have somebody, Ibn Amir was from Damascus. The one that was picked was from Kufa, Iraq. Damascus, the Umayyads. Iraq was the Abbasids.
Abbasids.
Does that ring a bell, folks?
Because in the 8th century, who then was controlling? Who
Exactly.
then took into control? And by 936, when these were chosen, by 936, when these are chosen by Ibn Mujahid, who now was in control? Is it no wonder that 3 of the 7 are from Kufa? 1 from Basra, 1 from Damascus, 1 from Medina, 1 from Mecca, 3 from Kufa. The majority are from Kufa, proving that this is a political statement, that this is for political reasons. This had nothing to do with textual irascibility. This had nothing to do with credibility. It had nothing to do with whether or not even these came from Muhammad. But did you notice? Look at the dates. We keep on reminding the dates. Not one of these Qurans is from the 7th century.
Amen.
They are all from the 8th century, 100 years later.
This, by the way, this part right now will conclude our radio podcast, Let Us Reason. Thank you so much, of course, for joining us. I encourage those of you who listen to the podcast to subscribe to Cira International. That's our YouTube channel. You can go there and watch this entire video. For the rest of you, we're going to continue with our discussion. So, Jay, again, what is the most damaging conclusion anyone can reach, whether a Muslim, non-Muslim, a scholar, whatever the case might be, when it comes to the book called the Quran?
I would say that this is not the most damaging. We haven't even got to the most damaging. But from a popular level, as Hutton reminded me, for every Muslim, this damages that more than any other because of the narrative that they have been given. And the narrative has been very clear. There is only one Quran. This Quran is complete. This Quran has never changed. This Quran is eternal. This Quran is preserved. This Quran is guarded. And if that is the narrative you've grown up, we have just shut down all 5 of those. It is not complete. It has been changed. It has never been preserved. It's certainly not guarded. And because of those 4, it cannot be eternal. So we've shut down all 5 of those in these 16 episodes that we have just done in the last 2 days.
Yeah, here's Usama, by the way. He's saying Abu Ja'far, Ibn Amir, Asim, Ibn Kathir all lived in the 7th century.
Okay, then look what their dates are. If they lived in the 7th century, let's look at the dates they died.
I don't know where he gets his information from. Folks, put him on timeout, please, because he needs to go and do his research.
Let's just go through it. Nafi died in 785. Is that the 7th century?
He doesn't even know what 7th century is, actually.
Okay, they may have been born in the 7th century. Were they doing it? In fact, he was born in 689. That means he was 11 years old. Was he doing his work when he was 11 years old?
689. The Prophet died in 632.
That's
Uthman
60 years after
did it
Prophet.
in 652.
So is he saying that Nafi, Ibn Kathir, Abu Amr, Ibn Amir, Asim, and Hamza, and Qasay all knew the Prophet? Not one of them knew the Prophet. Let's look at their dates again. Remember, Al-Qasai was born in 737. When was Muhammad die? 632. That's 100 years before he was born. So how can he say these things? Hamza al-Zayyad was born in 696. He was only 4 years old in the 7th century, and he died in 772. Look at Asim. He was born in 700. That is not the 7th century, and he died in 745. So in every one of these cases, they may have been born in the 7th century, but they did not do their work when they were 4 years old. They did not do their work when they were 11 years old. They did not do their work until the last 20 years of their life. And let's look at their times again. Nafi died in 785. That's the late 7th century. Ibn Kathir died in 738. And so he would have had, that was in the mid 7th century. Abu Amr died in 770. That's the late 8th century. Ibn Amir is the earliest, and that's 736. He did his work between 716 and 736. That, folks, is 80 to 100 years after Muhammad.
Well, I hope our friend just know the difference between 7th century.
Well, then he's asking, how do we know which is early? If he didn't know the difference between 748 and 736, which comes first, then it's obviously he doesn't know his mathematics.
Absolutely.
But rather than waste time on these kind
of
dates.
Moderators, please block this person right away. Thank you. Go ahead.
I think it's important that Muslims are trying to deflect. You can see why they're exasperated. The fact that they're making these kind of comments, the fact they're making these kind of questions suggests to me that this is desperation. And I would be desperate too if I were in their shoes. Listen, I can understand their anger. And their anger is going to be against us. We're used to that. I'm used to it. I've been at Speaker's Corner for 25 years.
That's the one we're blocking. Go ahead.
But anyhow, the fact that he has these kind of stupid questions, the fact that he's trying to say that he knew Muhammad. Listen, that idea that he knew Muhammad was only introduced in the 11th century. Not even Mujahid would have made that claim. Ibn Mujahid never claimed that these 7 knew Muhammad because he knew the dates. Right. He would not make that stupid a claim. The fact that this was only introduced in the 11th century suggests to me that there was some political reasons they had to do this, but they forgot to erase the dates. And if you're going to forget to erase the dates, then don't make the claim.
And that's what they do. They come to these shows intentionally just to distract you from the main issue. He knows there's a problem. He's not really oblivious to that. But the way they try to dilute the issue, they come up with claims like this. They're all in the 7th century. They were all witnesses to everything. Well, the data that you have comes from Islamic sources.
This is Wikipedia. I got this off of Wikipedia. I wanted to get it as simple as possible. We've got a lot of this from many other writers, but I wanted to make it as simple as possible so that anybody has access to this. So don't trust me. I could be lying. Please, 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 you go up to Wikipedia, put Qira'at, and then just look and see who these Qira'at writers are. Realize that the first 10 go from 736 up until 844. So we're talking about the beginning of the 8th century up until the mid-9th century. But they're not chosen until 1429. That is the 15th century. That is almost 800 years after Muhammad. So you can see the fact that they're not chosen till the 15th century suggests to me that this is a much later rendition. And that we're not even talking about the transmitters. We're not even talking about the narrators. We're not even talking about the rawis who come after. What is fascinating to me, though, is that Muslims are still going to make these claims, like he just did, that these are the ones that Muhammad received. Remember, according to Al-Bukhari, and it's Al-Bukhari that tells us that he received 7 readings, that he received it from Jibril. When did Al-Bukhari die? He died in 870. This postdates, this is another century later. After all these transmitters, then you get Al-Bukhari. So he is talking about something that happened 240 years earlier. How did Al-Bukhari know that these 7 existed? Was he living there in that century? No, he died in 870. That's 9th century, late 9th century. But his story about these 7 readings, Muslims today believe are these 7 right here. These cannot be those 7. We're repeating again. Just look at the dates. And that's why in our broadcasts, we're going to put up a timeline there. Just remind Muslims, look at the timeline. Always look and place them on a scale. And you will see that this is absolutely impossible historically. But I can understand why Al-Bukhari made that mistake. Because Al-Bukhari, living 240 years later, did not realize what was happening in the 7th century. More than that, he was hoping that these 7 would make that mistake, that would help him, because in the late 9th century, there were dialectical differences. There were different recitations. Not in the 7th century. Remember, how could Muhammad have received 7 recitations, 7 different dialects, and he only lived in Medina and Mecca?
Right, exactly. And I'm going to get back to my moderators. Moderators, it's Osama, O-S-A-M-A Yamani. That's the person we're talking about. Here's what's going on. You have people that have no relationship whatsoever with Muhammad. Uthman never, by the way, got any authority from Muhammad to go ahead and choose which reading, for instance. He chose the Qurayshi reading. Omar, for instance, when he advised Abu Bakr to go ahead and do the collection, Zayd ibn Thabit was nervous. He says, how can I do something that the Prophet himself did not authorize? You get to Ibn Mujahid, and apparently whatever Omar tried to do to control the dialects didn't work.
What Uthman tried to do?
Yeah, Uthman, it didn't work because it took from the 7th century until the 10th century to have so many that he was forced, Ibn Mujahid, to select 7, whom he even said they're not even canonical. Or at least divinely inspired. And then later on, we get to 15th century, and we still have the same problem, evidenced by the fact that 3 more were added.
3 more are added. And this is something that Muslims need to acknowledge. This is not something that's new, that they've just made up in the 20th century and the 21st century. This has been around for 1,000 years.
That's right.
Ibn Mujahid died in 936. We're now in 2020. That's over 1,000 years ago. Within 100 years of his death, they had made these 7 divine. Within 100 years of his death, they had made these seven that they were part of Muhammad's entourage. And that is why Omar keeps on saying these are 7th century. I'm going to give you proof. I would like any Muslim to give me proof that any of these 7 are doing their work. They may have been born in the last 10 years of the 7th century, but they did not do their work in the 7th century. All of their writings, all of these books start to appear in the 716 up till 805. Up to 805, from 716 up to 805. None of them at all appeared in the 7th century. And that's why we have to go and look at it on a timeline. I just don't think Muslims have looked at a timeline before. I don't think they've ever asked these kind of questions before. The reason why is even Yasir Qadhi didn't know this. Even Shabir Ali didn't know this. They hadn't even looked at it. Though they make lots of claims, and you can hear Muslims making claim after claim after claim, but they cannot support the claims that they're making. And that's why we're saying you can no longer make claims again. We're going to hold you accountable. Right. Because we hold ourselves accountable. We do that. We have always done this with the Bible. We have also thrown redacted criticism, source criticism. We've done literary criticism. We've done all of the criticism against the Bible, and the Bible has passed every one of those tests. Amen. For the first time now, we're throwing it against the Quran, and look what kind of response we're getting. Idiotic responses. Using all kinds, I will show you the evidence. No, there's no evidence. Just show me the dates. If you want to show me the evidence, just show me the dates. Because when you look at the dates, you can see all of these are 8th and 9th up until the 10th century. Fascinating to me why Muslims can still try to come back with that kind of evidence.
Right. By the way, Osama is on your stream, so you may want to have to deal with him. Folks, we're going to wrap it up in a few minutes. Any particular questions that you have for Jay, because Jay will be leaving town also shortly. Both of us actually will finish right now. We'll wrap up and we'll leave. Lord willing, in a few months, we'll come back and
come back again. Here later on this year.
Yeah, and in between, maybe we'll do a couple of live streams anyway to update on certain things.
We have an awful lot we have to do. I would like to do the coins with you. The coins are another piece of evidence, amazing evidence. We have always been confronted by not just the Muslims, by everybody else, that so far much of what we have been saying is there is no evidence. This is the argument of silence, they always say. You're always arguing from silence. No longer are we arguing from silence. This is not silent. These are absolutely vivid. You can see these are nothing that we didn't create these, we didn't write these, we didn't publish these, we just bought them off the internet. Hatun did not make them up herself. She actually went and physically went and bought them. And because of the fact that these are evidence not from silence, these are evidence from much later century, the Muslims now are going to have to show us the evidence. And what we're going to say that every one of your arguments about who Muhammad is, every one of your arguments about who Abu Bakr is and who Umar is, who Uthman is and who Ali, these are now arguments from silence.
So we have 2 questions here, folks. If you can slow the screen in front of me. One question by Dud D. Excellent question. Jay Smith, are any of the 6 major manuscripts complete? Which I know the answer to that.
Not one of them is complete.
Not a single one. In fact, the Samarkand that you keep hearing about has only
goes up to
portion
40,
of chapter 2 until
43.
Yeah, exactly. And
many of those are within, there's only one that is complete within the first 43.
Not even 100% complete. It's 98 or 99% complete. It has 2,000 or 2,200 variances.
You're talking about the top copy now. The top copy has 2,270 variants.
Right. And I think there is a second question. Jay, we debated in, Yusuf Ismail, okay? He said he debated you in 2012. Would you be keen to do a debate on the Qira'at?
I don't think Yusuf Ismail even knows how to debate this yet. What I would like to see is Yusuf Ismail do an article on this. Yusuf, do an article on this. Let me see if you even know what you're talking about. Show me and disprove what we just said today. If you can show me we can disprove what you said today, we'll do a debate. Now, the 2 of us will do debate against 2 of you.
Yeah, that'll be great. Lower it down a little bit. There is this person, Araf Jan. Araf Jan says that Brubaker has been debunked. I love it when they say Brubaker has been debunked. What is it have been debunked exactly?
They're debunking his pictures. They're saying that they're... how can you debunk pictures?
Pictures of what?
They're pictures of a variance of the Razm.
Where did he find these?
He found these in their manuscripts. These are the top copy, the Samarkand, the Ma'il, the Petropolitanus, the Sana manuscript, and the Husseini manuscript, plus the one from Oman. And
which is available at museums, right?
You can get them in museum. You can get them in library. but he is the first one and the only one to actually go and photograph them. So how can you debunk photographs?
And the basically the I would say the administrators who are in charge of these museums were glad to allow him access because they look at these as manuscripts.
That's right. If these manuscripts have been around since the 8th century, why have no Muslims done what Dan Brubaker has done?
And by the way, these museums, they knew that Dr. Brubaker was looking for corrections. So it's not like it was a secret. He wasn't like hiding his agenda from them. They knew that. They gave him permission to publish.
There you go. There you go. And that's why it's so important that we do continue to introduce this new material. Now, we haven't really got into the manuscripts yet. I've got some of them right over here. We've kept them. That's for another time. That's for another place.
Right.
I would love to get into the manuscripts, and I've been saying, everybody's saying, hold off, because we need to do with the Qira'at first. The Qira'at are so much more important because they're on a popular level.
Yeah, I think Artistic Boy is asking, are Hafs a Qurayshi dialect, Jay? I think you didn't hear what Jay was saying, by the way. Jay said no.
No.
Hafs supposedly was a transmitter of Asim, who supposedly was from Kufa.
Not supposedly, he is from Kufa. I mean, that's not
what I'm saying. I mean,
no one's questions that.
Let's assume, that there is any questions about that. He still is not from Mecca or Medina.
Listen, there are only 3 of the readers that would be Qurayshi. One would be Nafi, the other would be Ibn Kathir, and the third one would be Abu Ja'far. Then there are, I think, let's say there's only 5 of the narrations that are from that would be Qurayshi. One would be Qal'un, the other one would be Al-Bazi, then would be Kunbul, the other 2 would be Isa ibn Wardan and Ibn Jumaz. Those are the other 5. So when you put them together, of the 30, only 8 of them are Qurayshi. All the others are the corrupted script, including this one right here, because those come from Basra, Kufa, and Damascus. Those are the 3 wrong cities. Those are the 3 wrong countries. They didn't even have Arabic in those countries in the 7th century. You remember, up in Damascus, they would have been Byzantine. There was no Arabs there in Damascus in 632. Let me just finish this. There is no Arabic there because that would have been Greek. Over in Kufa and in Basra, the Muslims had not even got there yet. According to even the traditions, if we were going to use the traditional account, which I don't believe in, they didn't even get there till 638 to 639. Muhammad died in 632. So how could these be Arabic texts over there? They would have been Persian, or what we now know today as Pahlavi. If they had been in Egypt, where Warish is from, they would have used Coptic there. So fascinating that no one's looking at the historical context again.
Very good. We'll take 2 more questions and we'll wrap it up. Osama Yamani, also known as Nobody, saying, why are you claiming that you have introduced this qira'at when Islamic Awareness introduced it in 2002?
We have introduced what qira'at? We're not introducing it. We're looking at the dates.
That tells you he doesn't listen to anything you're saying.
My goodness, I'm not the first to introduce it. This has been around for 1,000 years. Oh, let's be careful. What we don't have and what people haven't looked at is Muslims have not actually exposed this.
You introduced the 26 Qurans in 2016.
We introduced that was the first time that anybody had done and held them up to show that they were all different.
Right, and if that was the case, then how come, what's his name?
Muhammad Hijab?
The other gentleman who's involved with the Islamic Awareness, Mansour Ahmed. Why was Mansour Ahmed troubled by it?
Mansour Ahmed had a difficulty because he didn't know what to do with this material. Yeah. And you can see why. Because this is not something that Muslims are taught. Remember what Yasser Qadi, he says, I have never talked about this. I have never given a lecture on this. You don't talk about this in public. This is, he said, we have a red line and we respect the Quran and we don't go beyond this red line. And then he made 3 different criteria. He said, for those who are new in the faith, those who are brand new Muslims, we don't even talk about it. For those who are intermediate, we don't mention this and we say just memorize what we tell you. For those who take my class, he must have mentioned 2 or 3 times, we do a deep dive, and that's when the problems exist. And he says, I had this problem 25 years ago in 1995 when I went to Yale University, and I heard for the first time this material that we're introducing right now, that the fact that there was not just one Quran, it looked like there were about 30 official Qurans at that time, and not one of them was the same. Look at just between these 2 that we have right here, 5,000 differences right between these 2 right here, the Warsh and the Hafs. These are the 2 most popular ones. And you can see and when Muhammad Hijab said, well, how did you deal with that? How did you deal with it? What was his response? I am absolutely sure that the Quran is preserved. I am absolutely sure that it is guarded. There is only one Quran. He went into a mantra, and this is what I hear Muslims do all the time. They just go into this mantra, this memorized phraseology that comes out of the Quran, that comes from chapter 10, verse 15, that comes from chapter 18, verse 27, that comes from chapter 15, verse 9. They just go into this mantra, and he said, this is not a crisis of faith, it is a crisis of knowledge. He will not let it touch his faith. But see, it's the crisis of knowledge that he had no response for. And for 25 minutes, when Muhammad Hijab kept on answering him, I want you to answer this question. This should be easier, yes or no. Is that the hafs that you're going to put in my hand? Is it yes or no? And his final answer is, this is a problem I cannot answer, not in 20 minutes. And finally he said, it's all the Quran. All of 30 are the Quran. All 93,000 differences are the Quran. 93,000 differences. You take a little bit of this, you take a little bit of that, put a little bit of warsh in there, stick a little bit of kalun in there, and mix it up with the hafs, and you get the Quran, proving that they have no answer.
Amen.
Thank God we now have pretty much destroyed this idea that there's one Quran.
So, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Here is my conclusion based on what we have done for the last 2 days and what you have heard today. If anyone ever comes to me or comes to Jay or comes to you or comes to anyone and say, we have a perfect Quran, please ask him this very simple question. Which one out of all the Qurans that we have uncovered? That's the way I want to end this show. God bless you all. We'll see you later. Take care.
Pick and mix. I love that.